Hello and welcome to Hot Take, the show where I take a controversial stance and try to justify it. A little while ago, I asserted the position that the older Dragon Ball movies before Battle of Gods were, for lack of a better term, to me personally, subpar. Which led me to send out a tweet asking you guys to suggest some of your favorite films for me to review. And so far, I've seen BoJack Unbound, Cooler's Revenge, Wrath of the Dragon, and Fusion Reborn. However, today I am going to be looking at Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan, Dead Zone, The World's Strongest, and Path to Power. In the comments of my last video, these came up time and time again as recommended, so let's see how they measure up. Starting with 1996's Dragon Ball film, Path to Power. I'm gonna come out and say it. This is the single best animated Dragon Ball film after Dragon Ball Super Broly. I think it is better than Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and even Fusion Reborn in many respects. The action scenes are spectacular, but this film honestly never stops moving, even in the comedic and quieter scenes. Whether it be the vast types of machinery used, a single pole digging into the ground, or someone taping a wing mirror to a vehicle, this film is top to bottom, beginning to end, detail and effort. And honestly, that brought a lot of life to the characters of this film. Additionally, this film is actually feature-length too, with a runtime of 1 hour and 20 minutes. And despite the vast majority of it being made up of Dragon Ball's early story beats, there's enough different both visually and narratively to warrant at least one viewing. With that said, the film does have its downsides. As I've said, the vast majority of the film's runtime is comprised of scenes taken or inspired from the manga itself. The first 11 minutes of the film are spent animating the first 23 pages of the manga itself, and scenes like Muscle Tower, Yamcha and Oolong's introduction, as well as Master Roshi's first appearance are included, depicting minor or significant changes from the original story. And despite not including characters like Chi-Chi, Ox King, or any of the other colorful characters of early Dragon Ball, they made absolutely certain to include every lewd, crude, and crass shot of Bulma they could. Personally, this is less of a problem I have with this film specifically, and more so one I have with the anime industry in Japan in general. And I honestly think stuff like this is holding it back from being taken seriously on a much broader worldwide stage. With all of that said, I want to treat this film as a film and not an adaptation of the series. So do I think that this film can stand alone on its own? Absolutely. For the first half of the feature, the story focuses on introducing Goku, Bulma, Oolong, Yamcha, and Puar to the audience. By the way, this movie makes Yamcha look intimidating for a few seconds. Just let that sink in. In trying to track down the 7 Dragon Balls, they find themselves engaging with the Red Ribbon Army and Android 8. Android 8 refuses to fight, resulting in Goku building a relationship with the android. However, my only gripe with the film comes at the end. During the final battle, where there's tons of even more gorgeous animation than we've seen already, Android 8 shows up out of nowhere to make the save for Goku, destroying himself in the process. Once Goku realizes his friend is gone, he gets angry and boom, the movie is over. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that on a technical level, but I would have liked more of a reason for Android 8 and Goku to be so fond of one another. However, with that said, it's not necessarily that much of a stretch in the first place. Goku around this time is very innocent, and Android 8 never had a friend before. When all was said and done, if you look at this film as its own unique standalone story, I think it works exceptionally well considering what it has to work with. While films like Fusion Reborn were really fun and enjoyable, I thought they felt more like extended episodes of the show than an actual film in its own right. Path to Power, both from a visual production point of view and a narrative one to some extent, is much more of a total film than Fusion Reborn was. So, as of writing this, Path to Power takes the #1 spot in my rankings of the film so far. But will that change with the introduction of the next film? The Dead Zone movie, a Dragon Ball Z film from 1989, and I'm just gonna say it flat out, I really didn't like this one. While the story is simple and doesn't have too many moving parts, there were so many things concerning the story I had issues with, I couldn't help but be taken out time and time again. But that's not to say that there aren't things I enjoyed within the film itself. It has an exceptionally efficient and strong opening, setting the stakes early, establishing the villain, and taking out 2 big players right off the bat, or so I thought. I also thoroughly enjoyed seeing Chi-Chi standing up for herself physically while trying to defend her son Gohan. Not some damsel in distress, and I really appreciated that. The plot in a nutshell is that Garlic Jr. wants to take over the world and gain immortality using the Dragon Balls.
Of course!
In his effort to gather all of the orbs, Gohan, for some reason, gets wrapped up in all of the chaos and taken to Garlic's castle. Which brings me to all the problems I had with the film. How did Garlic's forces know where any of the Dragon Balls were? When they attacked Gohan's family for their Dragon Ball, why didn't they just take the hat Gohan was wearing instead of Gohan wearing the hat? A hat can run away, and they even said that they would bring him back early in the film. It's only later that Garlic Jr. learns of Gohan's hidden power and wants to keep him. Why did they drag a crying child all the way to their hideout if all they wanted was the Dragon Ball? It's like going to a clothing store with the intention of stealing or shoplifting something and running out with a person wearing the shirt you wanted. It doesn't make any sense, and it's a crippling plot hole in this movie. The implication in the first scene was that Kami and Piccolo had been removed entirely from the picture, which begs the question, why would Garlic Jr. and his henchmen try to end their lives knowing that if they did, the Dragon Balls would vanish and Garlic would never be able to enact his plan? It's honestly like the people writing this don't know the rules of the world they're writing for. Additionally, there's another scene where our heroes are trying to retrieve Gohan, who is up on a high balcony. This is a problem for Goku for some reason, despite him jumping exceptionally high moments prior, and that's not even mentioning that he doesn't even think to use Kinto or Nimbus. And finally, the Garlic Jr. fight at the end takes a ton of visual cues and ideas from Piccolo and Goku's battle with Raditz. Most obvious being the weighted clothing reveal from both fighters and Gohan's last-minute save at the end. Honestly, all in all, this film being only 41 minutes long feels more like a couple of bad episodes than an actual movie. There are some nice action moments dotted throughout with some nostalgic animation that I loved, but the plot is confused, contradictory, and amateurish at times. I hope to Kami that the next film I watch is better than this one. This is yet another one of the Dragon Ball films that has a pretty simple plot. A villain by the name of Dr. Wheelo appears in the form of a brain after using the Dragon Balls. Piccolo, Master Roshi, and Bulma are all taken by this villain who is essentially looking for the best body to act as a vessel for his consciousness. Therefore, he is looking for, all together now, the world's strongest. Once word reaches Goku that Roshi and Bulma have been taken by this villain, he makes a beeline for the snowy region. The action in this film is honestly spectacular for the most part and features some of the most iconic Dragon Ball film battles. I'm sure most of you will recognize a lot of these clips from the original opening for Dragon Ball Z that we would receive in the West. There's even some action with Roshi that is honestly always a delight to see. It's these early battles in the headquarters that are the film's strongest, I think. There's tons of creative choreography with Goku fighting on the ice against spiky balls and the character Botamo's character stole ideas from. However, there's a section towards the middle of the film where the pace comes to an abrupt stop for yet more exposition to be given. Which brings me to my first major criticism of this film. We get Dr. Wheelo's backstory and plan too many times during the runtime. I've spoken in the past that other Dragon Ball films like these have been crippled by their short runtime. However, this film at times feels as though they took a 40-minute script and tried to stretch it to 1 hour. Now, that's not to say that this film is boring, but the entire Gohan sequence towards the beginning didn't need to be there at all, and Dr. Wheelo's plan didn't need to be explained a half dozen times in different ways from different characters. As I've said before, the animation is honestly fantastic and has some wonderful moments. A highlight for sure has to be the group Kamehameha and Goku's frequent use of my favorite technique, the Kaioken. However, once the final battle between the giant robot and Goku shows up, another issue becomes impossible to ignore for me. The majority of the fight is comprised of set pieces and shots that are lifted almost directly from the Saiyan saga. The similarities have been present throughout the film, but this last act is so similar to Vegeta's fight with Goku, it's distracting. Honestly, the action in this film is the best I've seen from these early DBZ movies, but the story is maybe too simple and the plot isn't there to justify the 1 hour runtime, I think personally. And now with that out of the way, you know what time it is. It's the time for Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan. Jokes aside, I'm not sure if I need to run through the plot of this one. It's pretty well known through memes and even Team 4-Star, but for those that don't know, here's the skinny. King Kai notices a massive power has blown up the South Galaxy and makes contact with Goku to investigate the issue. While this is happening, Trunks, Gohan, and the rest of the gang are invited to New Planet Vegeta, where our Vegeta has been asked to reign as king and to defeat the Legendary Super Saiyan. There we discover two new Saiyans, Paragus and his son Broly. However, it's a trap, he's really strong, they fight, the end. And that'll do it for this week. See you all in the next video. Bye! Okay, so this film is a lot better and in many ways a lot worse than I expected at the same time. The comedic moments towards the beginning work surprisingly well, and Goku is an absolute treat to see in these scenarios with Chi-Chi. I also enjoyed the structure of Goku and Vegeta's plotlines working side by side, with both Vegeta and Goku pursuing the legendary Super Saiyan that has been wreaking havoc on the universe. However, before long, the story moves on to my favorite part of these films, the exposition dump. It's revealed that Paragus is trying to control Broly's power using a remote, and that Broly's entire motivation to attack and dislike Goku is due to him crying in the nursery next to him. I know most of you know this already, and even I did for years, but wow, even just hearing it now, it just really resonates as a nothing motivation. I have no idea what Broly's personality is like. He has virtually no lines in this film beyond screaming and the word Kakarot. Certainly none that shed any discernible light on what kind of character he is personally. At times he seems calm and mellow, others he seems psychotically evil. I guess whatever the story needs him to be. Within this film, Paragus has a number of long-winded expository monologues that serve to fill us in on his motivations and their origins. And honestly, I always found these to be really boring. This is something the latest Broly film rectified by showing us their origin rather than telling it to us. However, as the action ramps up, Broly eats all of Vegeta's most powerful attacks without blinking, concluding in one of the most iconic and recognizable moments of the film. The visuals in this movie are stunning, and the action is genuinely fantastic. It's no wonder that this film set a trend for the art department moving forward. This was the first film that employed character designs by Tadayoshi Yamamura, who would eventually go on to provide designs for the Buu Saga and years later for Dragon Ball Super. The second half of the film is pretty much wall-to-wall action from Trunks, Gohan, Vegeta, and a whole lot of all in all, I actually really enjoyed Goku in this film, and a lot of the comedy it employed worked really well for me. I especially love that Goku teleports into Krillin's punch. Now that's some good slapstick. The opening scenes are fun and the action is enjoyable to a certain extent, but the motivations and personalities introduced outside the main cast are extremely one-dimensional and at times overtly boring. I don't think I'd watch this film again, but if you haven't seen it and love Dragon Ball, there's definitely something to enjoy. So I have now seen 8 Dragon Ball films in total, and this is how I would rank them. My least favorite so far has been Dead Zone. In a close 7th place, I would put BoJack Unbound. After that, I would put Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan. Cooler's Revenge takes up the middle. World's Strongest nabs the 4th spot. Wrath of the Dragon comes in at number 3. Fusion Reborn comes in at number 2, and Path to Power so far has been my favorite of the Dragon Ball films. Most of these films, including Fusion Reborn, which I really liked, would work just as well, if not better, as episodes within a TV show. Very few of these old Dragon Ball films actually feel like films, and most of them, to me at least, feel rushed or have massive glaring issues. Wrath of the Dragon. However, that'll do it for this week. Don't forget to leave a comment explaining why I'm wrong and subscribe for more wacky Dragon Ball videos. Thank you so much for watching.